Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another Thursday Fastball with Crusty Canuck. I'm your host, Crusty Canuck. And today we have a very, very special episode. With me on the show is a Ms. Benita Pedersen, all fired up for freedom. Basically, would I be wrong to say karaoke owner, DJ, and yet aficionado when it comes to firing up people at the freedom rallies we've been seeing in this province the better part of 3 or 4 months. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Benita Pedersen, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation to come on the show, John. I really, really appreciate it. As you know, my background is I'm a DJ and a karaoke hostess and an entertainer. What a lot of people might know though, is that I have lots of experience as a speaker and a presenter and a workshop facilitator. And so what's happened is with this All Fired Up for Freedom movement, I am putting all of my skills to use. It's like I was born for this.
Right on, right on. Outstanding. Yes, I saw some of your work on Rebel and Sheila Gunn Reid interviewing you in regards to the rallies that we all need here. Maybe we're lucky here in Alberta in regards to the lockdowns compared to other parts of the country, i.e. like interior BC, La Belle Province, Quebec, and of course Ontario, you know, the center of the known universe, as some Canadians like to think. But
what I love about Alberta is the spirit of Albertans. And what I'm finding here is that we have a really strong people and independent people. They're not easily beaten down, shall we say. There's a huge spirit here. And I don't think Albertans would ever tolerate a curfew like what's happening in Quebec. Albertans,
no, there would be quite the riot.
Yes, the spirit here is huge. And so with my work, what I feel my mission is to encourage that spirit. That's my job.
Well done. Well done. So what basically motivates you to get out and do the All Fired Up for Freedom? What was, I guess you can say, what would be the tipping point for yourself to get out there and really get people motivated?
There's a whole backstory, so if you don't mind, I'll go into that.
No, okay? By all means, please share it with myself and the audience. I'm sure they'd love to know.
Okay, well, first of all, I had been in business for over 20 years as a DJ and an entertainer. And my job with my business is to build spirit. Essentially, I will connect with an audience in any room and sort of figure out where the mood is at. And then my job is to raise the mood. So I have a gift for connecting with people, connecting myself with people, and connecting people with one another. And I've honed this craft for 20 years, and I absolutely love it because I love people. I just, that's anybody who's going into this kind of work, I recommend that you love people to do this sort of thing. Well, as of March 17th of last year, the government essentially deemed me non-essential, and I was out of work. Events were canceled, bars were closed. I was no longer DJing or hosting karaoke. And of course, there weren't any meetings or workshops happening either. None of that happening live. For the first couple of weeks of the pandemic there where we got shut down, I actually enjoyed the break. I had a couple of weeks off and I honestly thought in my head, well, this is temporary. We'll be back in business in under 3 months.
Yeah, well, 2 weeks.
that didn't happen so much differently. I know. And so here I was beside myself. What am I going to do with myself? And I had to figure out some things to do because, of course, I love people and I was missing people. And so I took up some new hobbies. I was gardening and I painted a bathroom and I learned to make salsa. I did some canning and so I created some new talents over the months, but of course my heart is for people and it's for connecting with people. And as much as I do enjoy online meetings and gathering like this, so for example, I've been involved in various Toastmasters clubs. Although I do enjoy this, it still doesn't fulfill my need for people. And so with that recognition of that and knowing how much I was hurting, even in the circumstances, I started to wonder if other people are hurting. And in the ways that I could, I engaged with people in my area and my community, and I sensed the hurt. So that people are really hurting with this isolation. And it was so funny to watch the behavior of people, even in stores. So for example, the government saying, oh, don't get within 6 feet. Oh, and you must wear a mask. Well, not only that, I found people because of those rules, they weren't even making eye contact with one another. They'd turn their head in a different direction. And then you feel rejected, right? Because this person won't even talk to you because they're scared to talk to you due to the germs and the information the government has inundated them with. So all of that was really bothering me. And so by September, I was fed up then, and I knew we have to start doing stuff. So luckily, I got booked for some shows. There were some organizations that figured out a way to have events even with the COVID-19 rules. So I was very thankful to have those events and be able to connect with people there. And then in October, I realized that a special lady in my community of Westlock was doing a super special event for Halloween. So I got involved in that, and I managed to dress up as a witch and put my mask on and please and terrify small children all in one day while we brought in donations for the food bank. So there's actually some really funny videos about that on my Facebook page and possibly on my YouTube channel, which has to do with Halloween. And it's really funny. And it was a way of building spirit in the community, yet following the COVID-19 restrictions. Mm-hmm. So come November, though, I was still really hurting. And I realized that our community couldn't have the typical Remembrance Day celebration of life that we would generally have to honor our fallen. And so I reached out to the local Legion and I said to them, how can I help? Because they couldn't have an indoor event. It's against the rules. And they thought they would have an outdoor event at the Cenotaph. So they arranged some stuff at the Cenotaph, and I knew they'd have some issues there. So I offered my sound system, and I set up my sound system outside at the Cenotaph so that people could social distance in the parking lot, and they could have their cars parked all over the parking lot, and yet they could very clearly hear the speeches that were going on. And so that presentation of that Remembrance Day ceremony is posted online, and I was a part of helping make that happen. And so I guess the bottom line I'm trying to say here is that my heart hurts for people. And then I know that one of our needs, in addition to food and water and shelter and clothing and transportation, is connection. It's a human need like any other. Connection is important. And I am all about a connection. I'm a connection specialist for over 2 decades. Mm-hmm. So as things unfolded and these lockdowns weren't ending, and I can sense the frustration, my own frustration and the frustration and the hurt of others, I found more projects to do where I was still working within the guidelines of the COVID-19 restrictions. And so that included what we call Westlock Christmas Light Up. That was a special event in November, and we had a reverse parade. So the concept of that was the floats stay parked, but the families parade through in their cars. And it was super nice. And because it was a reverse parade, and it was a totally different style than a regular parade, because we're trying to dissuade people from gathering in the streets at that time. And the concept is you keep all the families separated from one another and the floats stay parked. And so because of that concept, I managed to book a concrete pump truck, and it extended its boom over the traffic, like all the way over the street. And then the cars had to drive under it, and the boom had Christmas lights on it. It was very magical. I had my DJ rig set up. I had a whole bunch of volunteers roped in to dress up as mascots and wear their masks. And they danced around and entertained the families as the families went by. And we did everything we could to lift spirits. I was there serving as DJ. We did some dancing. We're waving and smiling at people. They're waving and smiling back, and doing everything I could to lift spirits and obey the rules. So then come December, did a similar thing right near Christmas. It was on Wednesday, December 23rd. And I set up my DJ system at a drive-through, and people came through the drive-through, and we waved, etc. as well as that. If they weren't wearing masks in the vehicle, I assumed they were family to one another. So I had mistletoe on an 8-foot-long stick, and I put the mistletoe on the end of the stick and dangled it over the vehicle, and so they'd have a smooch. And it was so beautiful to see people's spirits being lifted, and yet we're still following COVID restrictions. A candy cane delivery system. I had a candy cane trough built and put on top of a stand, and then that way I could slide candy canes to children sitting in the vehicles. And it was really funny because half the time they'd fall off. And that was my way of delivering candy canes, and yet obeying the COVID-19 restrictions because we're giving them at least 6 feet distance, right? So I was kind of making fun of the rules, but I was following them. Another thing I did in November and December was photos with Santa. I actually figured out how to have photos with Santa because I knew that it was important to many families for the kids to engage with Santa Claus because Santa is love. And that's what's needed is we need love. We need connection. So the way I designed photos with Santa is there was a very special scene set up with a fake fireplace and a Christmas tree and a beautiful chair and a bench. And what I did is Santa sits in the chair and I arranged for a piece of glass. It was donated from a local company and the glass is about 3 feet long and 5 feet tall. And that piece of glass goes next to Santa's chair. So if you can picture Santa in a chair right here, and here's the piece of glass. Well, on the other side of the piece of glass is a bench. And so the children sit on the bench and the camera is like straight on right off of the glass and the camera catches a photo and it just catches that edge of the glass there. But then that way, once the kids are settled on the bench, you can take your masks off and you can have a proper photo with Santa and a proper engagement with Santa. So that's the stuff I was doing. Like basically I'm rooted in people and I have a love for people and I really want to see spirits lifted. I want to see people encouraged. And I kept, even through all the COVID-19 rules, I kept plugging away and using all my creative energy to figure out ways to lift the spirits of the people. Because I thought, okay, I was still in the mindset then, this is temporary, this is going to end. And I was doing everything I could to help. And then even New Year's Eve, I did an online family dance and people Zoomed in, plus live via YouTube. We had this big event and I had myself and some other entertainers and we did some silly stuff to lift the spirits. So what the problem was is come January, my energy went pew, and I basically hit a wall because by that time I was starting to realize this is never going to end. And that was the mindset I was in. This is never going to end. Like it's going on and on and on and on. And the government made all those promises to us. Mid-December, they said, okay, we're going to shut down hair salons. We're going to shut down restaurants for dine-in service, but we'll reopen in January. Well, January rolls around and the government doesn't immediately allow the reopening to happen.
Sidestepped.
Yeah, they did. They misled us. And so people here are waiting to open. They're trusting the government and the government moves the goalposts again. So it took assertiveness of the people stepping up and standing up for our right to work. And then that's why hair salons and barbershops got to reopen. And so big thanks to Natalie Klein there because she stood up publicly with Blades to Fades in Innisfail. And that's a big part of why I feel the hair salons are open. So when I read that story, I was feeling somewhat inspired because keep in mind, in January, I was in a real slump. Then I read about Chris Scott from the Whistle Stop Cafe. And the government had said in December, we're closing for dine-in services. We'll let you reopen in January. But come January, they said, oh, we can't let dine-in services reopen yet. It'll be 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks go by and the government said, no, we can't let dine-in services happen. We better keep them closed. And we don't know when we're going to let them reopen. Like they didn't even say 2 weeks. They just said, we don't know when. And Chris Scott got fed up and publicly, very, very publicly, put out there that the Whistle Stop Cafe is open for business. They're not going to let the government restrictions keep them down. He inspired so many others. There were bars, lounges, and restaurants opening across the province. And then, boom, as of February 8th, guess what? The law is lifted and we could have dine-in service. So it worked. Pushing back works. And so those stories inspired me. And it was on February 4th when I decided I have to do something. I have to do whatever I can in my power to push back. So what can I do? I don't have a hair salon to open. I don't have a restaurant to open. How can I make my voice heard? And so I thought, well, I could put myself out there as a DJ, or I could host karaoke somewhere, do something with my sound system, support another business. And then it came to me, I have to rally. I have to rally. That's what I have to do. I have to arrange an event. I've got experience as an event planner. I can put this thing together. So within 8 hours on February 4th, I had my first rally plan for February 11th in Westlock. And then it just grew from there. After I did the February 11th rally in Westlock, I had people from Barhead contacting me. The next rally was in Barhead, February 18th. And since then, I've been to Athabasca, Slave Lake, White Court, Grand Prairie. I've also assisted with rallies in Calgary and Red Deer and Edmonton. So I've been here, there, and everywhere. And my passion is that we need a complete restoration of rights and freedoms for all Canadians. That's my goal.
I would agree. I would agree to that. Yeah. And people like yourself and others that have spoken out at these rallies, well done in that too. I've said in my show before too, I can't always afford to go to said rallies and show my support because gasoline costs money. And where I'm in this area, we don't have a lot of the restrictions per se. Excuse me, but we've had people complain about the masks and the distancing, and I've had to tell a few people just to kind of, mind your business. Your typical Carl and Karen, the finger pointing, oh my God, you don't have a mask on. Yeah, so what? I'm not dead yet, and I'm not carrying anything just yet, except, male baldness. That's about it. Nothing to worry about here, folks, honestly. And it's just the paranoia that goes with it. But I'm very blessed that there are people in this province that are willing to go that distance. Doesn't matter if you have a microphone or a speakerphone or the power of the pen, even this platform here, it's getting momentum. I just wish our elected officials, especially Mr. Kenny, understood that too, especially what's going on with Grace Life Church. Next week, I think, is the start of Ramadan too. So my curiosity is that if they're going to put emphasis on the Christian church and shut them down and build fences and throw these people in jail, are they going to do the same thing to mosques that might have a little more, or synagogues if they have a little more worshipers? What's your opinion on that?
For some reason, I doubt they will. I have my doubts that they will. I think for some reason the Christian church has been targeted. And it's been a really interesting personal journey for me, because for many years I thought I was a Christian, and I went to church and I have Christian friends and I read the Bible sometimes. But it was actually on February 4th of this year, the day that I decided I had to rally. And so these two are connected. It was February 4th of this year that I officially surrendered and I gave my life to Christ. That was the day. And I said, okay, your will be done. Work through me. I'll do everything I can. I'm 100% in for this cause. I truly feel that we need, in a sense, warriors for Christ. And right now, the war is a war of words, and our words are very powerful in all of their forms. So that includes the written forms where people are writing online, but it includes all the other forms too, like writing to the editor and the words you speak on your show and the words I speak on videos, the words I speak on the stage, the speeches that are written, all of these words. This is our, in a sense, this is our ammunition. We can battle with words, but there's certain ways to do it effectively. And I feel what's effective is when we can have discussions like this where we might disagree on something, but you say your piece, I listen to what you have to say, I consider what you have to say, and then conversely, you hear my piece and you consider what I have to say. But we got to do that together, and we have to do that with others who disagree. And that is how the problems are going to be solved. It's not going to be solved by if we start name calling or if we just put each other down or try to discredit one another. That's not how the problems are going to be solved. The problems will be solved when we have open dialogue and everybody gets to be heard and their viewpoints get to be considered and processed and shared. And we come to the table. We come to the round table, so to speak, all the leaders who disagree and listen to one another. And the problem with Jason Kenney is he has stopped listening.
Yeah.
Up until December, he was listening to the MLAs of Alberta. He was somewhat listening, but come January, he stopped listening. He shut them out. And because of Bill 10 and Bill 24, he's essentially king. There's nothing written in the bill. There's no sunset clause in the bill to when his reign ends. It's just in there that Jason Kenney, Tyler Shandro, and Dina Hinshaw have control of this province, and they can skip over the proper process of going through the legislature to pass laws. They can do whatever they want. So it's very, very disturbing that Bill 10 and Bill 24 even passed, and that kind of control was given to our leaders. So we're living in a dictatorship right now, and the symptoms of that are obvious. Pastor James Coates was arrested and put into prison, and now his church has been imprisoned.
Unlawfully, too, for that matter. And there are people that sit there and say, well, there's no such thing as private property, and then we're all just paying rent to live here under Her Majesty's reign. Personally, I don't think Her Majesty really cares. And that just adds more fuel to the fire to get out there and say, well, if these individuals are going to pay for this piece of land to gather and worship, or to gather and live, or to gather and grow crops, then that should be protected and defended to the highest letter of the law. If that gets defied, then the next alternative would be something violent, which I don't want to see.
Oh, I don't want to see violence. No.
No, but nobody does. Nobody does. But it's getting to a point where people are backed into corners. And
true. But
back a dog into a corner.
Yeah, standing up for ourselves takes a number of forms. So here, of course, I'm advocating for words. All right. You might have seen a BC clip from a BC restaurant where the health authorities attempted to enter the restaurant. Perhaps they were going to issue the owner a ticket or something because they weren't following all the rules. And all the people in the restaurant stood up and started chanting, "Get out, get out, get out." And all these people in the restaurant, including the owner and the staff, from what I could tell from the video, were simply chanting, "Get out." It was the power of the people. And I looked at that and I was so inspired to see that. It was nonviolent. We were simply using our words, and our words are powerful, especially in how they're delivered. And so they chanted, "Get out." And guess what? The authorities.
Yeah, they left. Just like the authorities are the Podolsky's church in Calgary.
Oh, I saw that video too.
That was beautiful. That was magical. Not to be sarcastic, it's just the way he was saying it. It reminded me of his scene in the movie The Amityville Horror. Familiar with that, where Rod Steiger's character is up in the base, or up in the top room, and he's blessing the house. Then the flies come, then the door opens, and you hear that undertone voice, "Get out," because the evil spirit is telling the priest, "Get out of here, because this is a place of evil." I'm not calling Mr. Pawlowski evil. It's just the way he presented that. It was amazing. It's like, "Get out. This is the house. This is a holy place. We're not taking your garbage here." And rightfully so, because that man has gone out of his way to help homeless. He is given freely without expecting anything in return, just common courtesy and respect. And the city of Calgary has done nothing but chastise him for the work he does. And it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or if you have faith in this, faith in that. Faith in humanity, I think, is the basis of all faiths. With your Jewish, Muslim, Christian, atheist, if you worship lemons or dance with monkeys, it doesn't matter. It's about being human. And I don't mind helping people that need help. And Mr. Pawlowski is an excellent example of that. Pastor James is an excellent example of that. Yourself, excellent example. Everyone I've talked to so far in the FASTBALL has been an excellent example of something they're doing and what they want to do and how they want to help people. And I think that's key. You know, my motto is humanity and merit wins the day, meaning being good to people and working for something.
Yes. I think actions speak louder than words. So when we look at Pastor Arthur and how he's helped the homeless and all the things he's done, like he's traveling up to Grace Life Church this Sunday. He's going to be there to support the church. Actions speak louder than words. He could very well just choose to speak from Calgary, but he's coming. His actions speak. And so I want to talk for a second here about language. My dad passed almost 2 years ago.
My condolences.
He died at the age of 83. I'm at peace with that. Okay, I'm at peace. And one of his tendencies, shall we say, was he'd swear. He would swear quite a lot in conversation.
Oops.
If he would talk with some people, the F word might slip out, etc., etc. And there were some people, I'll admit, who were uncomfortable with that because they prefer we don't use that kind of language. But there were others that were just whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Pastor Art, for example, he'll use that term Nazi or Gestapo, and he uses that language because it's a way of expressing the injustice of the law right now, because our law enforcement officers right now are enforcing the wrong laws. And there's many that won't write these tickets, but there's still people writing these health.
And that's what gets me too. That's
Exactly.
what gets me.
Yeah.
And
And
I know
so
a lot of police officers that are great individuals, and they wouldn't even think about knocking on my door, handing me a ticket saying, "Oh, Crusty, I saw you at a rally 4 days ago. Here's a ticket for your association." That's what it's coming down to. It's not actually committing a crime. It's that you're being associated with something, and the powers that be want to
and
prosecute.
back to language for a second, because when people use these words, whether it's a swear word or they're calling someone a Nazi or calling someone a Gestapo, or they're just using these phrases that come out, there's other people that for whatever reason they get triggered by the word and they get very, very upset, and instead of hearing the entire message of what that person is trying to present, they instead attach to the one word because, they used a word I don't like, and they reject the whole message. And so I'd like to express something to all the viewers who watch this broadcast, that when someone uses a word that triggers you or bothers you, try to control your reaction and open yourself up to hearing the full message. This is something that I've done, because I'll admit there was a time I would get very upset when people would swear. I found it impolite and rude. And
la 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 la.
Are you a swear? You swear?
La 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 la.
There was a time I was really upset, and I found that if I was in conversation with someone and they're swearing, and I would say, "I'm a lady, I don't appreciate being spoken to in that manner." Well, then what does that do? It shuts down the conversation. They might have been in the middle of, to be honest, a really great rant, and a swear word slipped out. And if I make a big deal about the swear word, what have I done? I have shut down the communication. So instead, I encourage people that when you get triggered by something, whether it's a swear word or a phrase or whatever it is, just allow the person to finish expressing themselves. Allow them to finish before you reject the message. And I feel like that's very important right now. It's in a sense a form of practicing forgiveness. Let's forgive that one another, that we're all imperfect. I'm imperfect, you're imperfect, but we both want a better world. And you might have some ideas how to make it better. I might have ideas to make it better. Maybe all our ideas don't agree. But if we talk long enough, chances are you and I are going to find some areas we agree on. And even if I don't use all the right words to express that, if you let me talk long enough, you might catch a gist of what I'm trying to say. Conversely, same as if I let you talk, maybe the first time you phrase something, it comes out a bit rough. But then if I let you talk long enough, and this is something I learned from Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson and his clinical psychology, the way I understood it is that people sometimes need to talk themselves. So the concept of going to a therapist isn't necessarily you go to the therapist with your problems and the therapist offers solutions to your problems. No, that's not the concept. The concept is you go to the therapist, you talk about your problems, the therapist asks you the right questions to help you think it through for yourself so you can come to your own solutions. And the fact of the matter is we think through speech. So if free speech gets constricted, so does thought. And this is truth. I know it from my own experience. I know it from the Jordan Peterson materials I've studied. I know it from watching others, that people think through speech. And even the beginning of a conversation, someone can evolve within one conversation. You might chat with them, they say a few things, you have a bit of back and forth. By the end of the conversation, you may have helped them evolve to a different perspective, or they've slightly adjusted their original perspective. And it's partly done through speech, through actually talking, as well as, of course, listening.
Oh, of course. And a lot of it's the basic etiquette I think we were brought up with as children. You listen to what's being told to you. And then once you're old enough and you can formulate your own sentences and everything, then you can, well, with a lack of a better term, talk back. In my teen years, I remember sometimes my mother used to that old scolding. Until I started formulating my own points of view and thinking for myself, I would challenge her all the time. And then it got to the point where she just let me be. Now, out in the world and after being in the military, okay, you're told what to think, what to do, when to poop, when to wipe, all that good stuff. But they still encourage you to think for yourself to make the right decisions. And in order to make those right decisions, to either seek guidance on that or mentorship on that, you have to speak. You have to promote what's your plan, how you're going to do it, how can I help you, how can I be a team member with you, how can I be a good subordinate, how can I be a good NCO, how can I be a good officer. We forget that. Now out in the world now, like you've said, someone might get triggered because you say a bad word or something. Oh my goodness. And you just shut yourself off and go blah, 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 blah. You're missing the point. Okay. Now in my show, yeah, I swear a lot. That's my brand. But that's how I'm articulating what's on my mind, getting out to my audience. And I warn my audience, okay, yeah, I swear this is meant for adults. Okay, listener discretion is advised. But people are still listening, which is good. But I put that out there, okay? And you can use cuss words in that format. Look at British humor. British humor would not be what it is today if it wasn't for swearing. And the same as Canadian humor. And I think the Americans ripped it off still. But that's the way I look at it. But I could write an essay without using a swear word. I could do a dialogue without using a swear word, not a problem. I do have those gifts to do that. But on this platform, it's just about being down to earth and being real.
Well, I disagree with suppressing expression. And I mean that in all its forms. So if someone is expressing themselves and a swear word slips out, just allow it to happen, let the message come out, and really listen for what they're really saying. Because sometimes someone gets off on a rant, a tangent, or they're venting, but there's actually an underlying message there. And you have to be really listening to pick up on it. Because sometimes they're angry about this, but they're actually hurting about that. And so it takes a lot of perception to work that out. And it takes asking the right open-ended questions to dig underneath and find out what the real problem is. So obviously right now here in Alberta, people are upset. And they're online and they are expressing themselves. And they're angry at the government, and they're angry about the rules, and they're angry about law enforcement. And people are expressing themselves in many, many ways. And as a rally organizer, I encourage that to an extent. Okay, if people want to come and do some expression, I support freedom of speech. So you can come up and use my mic to an extent. As I narrow the scope, though, the message on the rally stage is freedom. Like we're aiming for freedom. What I really want more, though, than stories of how much people are hurting and stories of just what's going on. What I'm really after, though, with the rallies is solutions. I want to hear solutions and suggestions on making this better, because I have zero desire to tear the whole system down. I don't want to tear the whole system down. We actually, Canada, we have some really good things going for us. It's just things are upside down right now. Our Constitution is sound. And if you get a chance, you could review the Alberta Bill of Rights. It's been out for decades. There is some good material in there. And so when we look back on the laws that were made in the past, there's some good stuff. And if we were living by those laws, like truly living by those laws, this society would be great. Our problem is we're not living by those laws. Somewhere along the way, the people in power decided, well, we don't have to follow those laws, or we can rewrite those laws, or we can simply reinterpret those laws. And that's what's happening. It's happening in the courts.
A lot of that reinterpretation, a lot of that misrepresentation too. One of our platforms in the VCP is one of the solutions is cutting federal MP and provincial MLA pay down to about 30%. Especially now, considering the 1st of April, that the federal MPs gave themselves an extra $600 a month. All the more reason to say, okay, well, we're going to solve some of the economic crisis by getting rid of some of the pay increases and the perks and privileges. When I was in the military, we had perks and privileges based on our pay too, but we also had to pay our rent and pay our share of taxes just like everybody else has. And I've actually had some emails from people saying, oh, soldiers don't pay taxes. Yes, they do. Just the same as any farmer does, any firefighter, yourself, anyone for that matter. We're all in the same tax racket, grab it, whatever monopoly. After seeing the pay raise that they gave themselves, even though businesses are going up, you've seen them, I've seen them, and not so much just Alberta, but Canada wide too. And yet you'll emphasize go to Walmart, go to Costco, go to the big brand stores. But now they're deeming what's going to be essential and what isn't essential. Who are these people to decide for you and me what we can buy and not buy, whether we have the money or not? That's what gets me. So one of my platforms is, okay, you're making 180,000 bucks a year to either decide to go to work or not, because the prime minister wants to prorogue things. Okay, 30%. You're not going to work to earn it. That 30% can go to seniors and go to clean water and to reinstate a better EI benefits to people that really need it, rather than just, well, here's a UBI that we're going to put on the table so people can rely on more government handouts. Right.
You know what? I have a number of concerns about government handouts. For example, I can speak for myself personally. As of March 17th of last year, I was deemed non-essential, but my business is essential to me. I go out, I make money, and that money puts food on my table and pays for my home. So that business is essential to me. And so for the government to say you're non-essential is very disturbing. Now, I've had people say, well, you got to learn how to pivot. You could do stuff online. And I've tried to do some stuff online, and I have found that this doesn't give us the connection that in-person does. And my whole specialty for 20 some years is in-person connection. So right now you're watching me via video camera, but if you see me live on a rally stage, I will blow you away. I will. So I hope you get to see me live sometime. Maybe May 3rd in or near Edmonton, because there's a big event there.
Well, now, definitely. Look forward to going to that myself. I would like to speak at these events as well, too.
Good. Well, I have lots more before May 3rd. Actually, I have, I'm in Barrhead this Saturday, Bonnyville this Sunday, April 11th. Next weekend, I'm in High Prairie and Peace River. The weekend after that, I'm in Lac La Biche and Fort McMurray. The week after that, I'm in Athabasca. And then I'm in Edmonton for 2 events on both April 30th and May 1st. So there's lots going on, lots of opportunity. If you ever want to come speak, you come speak.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd take that invitation in a heartbeat. I have quite a few little paragraphs I've written down in speech, not so much for the political campaign I aspire to get into, but for the sake of motivating Canadians to stop worrying about color and gender and language and start worrying about personal freedoms and choices you can make. I actually had an email from, I guess, a disenchanted follower. He was not impressed with the meme I used for one of my videos. And I explained to him, it's like, well, we have a prime minister that shows no regard for the majority of Canadians in this country. So he's open to criticism and making fun of. And this person, la, 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 I don't like your picture, blah, blah, blah. I more or less showed him that everyone's place is where they want to be. And he didn't like that too much. But then again, there was nothing to this person's profile. I couldn't figure anything out. So I just deleted it, which in way, the positive thing of that, it inspires me still to do better, to get out there, talk to people face to face.
That's a good point. Like, I know that I've said things at times that have put people off. And for example, last weekend, I believe so much in our freedoms, our freedom to assemble, our freedom of expression and freedom of religion, that I decided I'm going to support some church events. So I hosted Church in the Park last Saturday night in Edmonton at Kinsman Park. It made it to City News Edmonton. If you want to see the clip, it's online and available to watch. And then on Sunday, I hosted Church in the parking lot in Westlock. And when I was organizing both of these events, initially I was having some trouble finding a local pastor to present. So I ended up with a pastor from Manitoba. Pastor Tobias came all the way from Manitoba to present in Edmonton and in Westlock, because at that time I was struggling to find a local pastor. Then as the promotions for the event continued, I did end up finding some local pastors to be able to momentum had started. So I was very, very thankful for that. So I have what I'm saying is I had a person sort of express some resistance and say, I support the freedom message, but I don't agree that you're doing church. And I said to her, I support the freedom message so much that I'm doing church. And not only will I do church, I will run sound for other events. It could simply be party in the park where the kids dance with hula hoops and the mascots dance around and we do face painting and I run sound. The government right now is trying to discourage us from connecting with one another in these groups. And I'm saying we have to connect in these groups. We have to get together. That's what's actually going to solve the problems. And their fear that some virus is going to threaten our well-being is unfounded. Furthermore, when you listen to the government messaging, it's very interesting. They're always emphasizing protect the healthcare system. And it was right across the front of the website too for the longest time. We want to protect the healthcare system. The emphasis was on protecting the system. It wasn't on protecting Albertans.
Or people in general. Yeah.
That's one of the things that got me fired up. This is one of the reasons I rally, because they're not seeing the big picture. They're overemphasizing this virus, which is not having the detrimental effects as bad as what the lockdown rules are doing. So the lockdown rules are causing far more collateral damage than the virus. The government is way out of line. I know we can agree on that. Now, let's talk about solving the problem, though. So at the rallies, some presenters will come and they'll offer some suggestions to the people. But I have a suggestion I'd like to put out there. I'd like to see a bunch of provincial leaders get together at a round table for a facilitated discussion. I'd like to see leaders that the people deem as leaders, not necessarily the current slate of UCP MLAs. Who do the people see as leaders right now? And when you look around this province and you look around who's got a following right now, it's really interesting. So take, for example, Chris Scott of the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mirror. He's organizing an event this Saturday in support of Grace Life Church, in a sense, and it's a protest and it's to get people together. So that's happening this Saturday at his restaurant. He's even looking to rent an event tent for it. And so he's there, and there he has many, many, many followers. People have been coming all over the province just to have lunch at the Whistle Stop Cafe because they support that he stood up against the government restrictions at great risk to himself. Who is another admired leader in this province? Pastor James Coates. He stood up against the restrictions at great risk to himself, ended up in jail for it, and now his church building has been put in jail. It's behind a fence. So people are looking at him and they are flocking from all over the province. And this Sunday, they're going to be at his church. So when we look around and we see these leaders, Jason Kenney's no longer a leader. His support has dropped dramatically. And this last act where they have fenced off a church has finished him. He's over.
I would say so. And the alternative doesn't look that great either, too. Every so often I see Notley's little tweets. Motley Notley, I call her, because I find her to be a walking contradiction. And I've had some kind of, cyber headbutts with some of the pro-Notley aficionados. Now I've met some members of the Rebel Media. I was at the Libranos book signing there at the Princess on White in Edmonton. And I just got the tail end of the Antifa/NDP people that tried to shut that signing down. So every time I see Notley's email or tweets in regards to unification and helping people out and doing the less fortunate, she's the first one to stifle anyone's free speech. She's the first one to stifle anyone's unsatisfactory efforts in regards to how she looked after the oil in this province, the provincial deficit. And people say, oh my God, well, can you spend all this money? It's like, well, how much money did Notley spend into doing the kumbaya mentality thing, thwarting production of oil, and then all of a sudden saying, okay, well, we want a pipeline, but we're going to ship everything by train. So you just created the environmental catastrophe up, a few more notches in the belt. If there was ever a train accident, I just was not impressed. And as far as I'm concerned, the Liberals, I don't think is there any left in Alberta? I know But
well, there's momentum right now for the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta. My understanding is they have constituency associations already arranged, like in at least 40 constituencies. So the Wild Rose Independence Party of Alberta is gaining some momentum. The Alberta Advantage Party is gaining some momentum as well. So there are alternatives to the UCP and the NDP. I do want to talk about Notley for a second here. There was
Notley? Notley? Yeah.
That wasn't the nickname I was going to use for her, but I've learned to be more polite at times.
Gotcha. Yeah.
There was an event at the Alberta Legislature on Saturday, February 20th, and I had never previously been to an event where Antifa existed. This was my first time because I'm a small town girl, and being in the big city at some of these things is a bit of an eye-opener for me. So after I had finished with the event in front of the Edmonton Remand Center, because I was involved in 5 rallies at the Edmonton Remand Center in 4 days in support of Pastor James Coates. And so I was there February 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd. And but on the 20th, of course, I felt pulled to go to the legislature. So I go there, and at first I was a bit uncomfortable because of the police presence. I had never seen anything like that before. And then, of course, I got to see Antifa. And there were these Antifa people chanting. They chanted during the singing of O Canada. That's how rude they are. They were busy chanting. They couldn't even show respect for our national anthem. So that was the first shock to me. And then they're just continually chanting, and they're wearing their masks, and they're waving these signs. And they are, I guess, counter-protesting the other event. So the other event is going on. We must have had 1,000, 2,000 people there for freedom. And there were some wonderful, wonderful speeches, absolutely fantastic, really well done, really positive vibe. And after that presentation, the freedom fighters did a march around the legislature, and some of them carried torches. Some of
the tiki torch, yeah.
Okay. I know, but I want to put that in perspective for you. So they carried their torches, and I was there for that. And I walked around. I made it twice around the legislature, but there were others. They made it the full 7 laps, and I have so much admiration for those people. And it was such a beautiful march. Like, some had torches, some were just carrying these little, it was like a little mini gas lamp. Some were carrying glow sticks. One lady carried the Canadian flag, but she had the pole of the flag wrapped in Christmas lights. Like, it was just beautiful. And these people are marching. There were various churches represented, Churches for Freedom, and they would carry their church banner, and they were singing gospel songs. It is so beautiful. And there'd be a group of them, and they'd be singing. And then there might be another group later on, and they're chanting freedom, freedom, freedom. And it was just so beautiful to see this mixture of people doing this march. And inside, I knew what it meant. Like, I knew why I was there. I knew why they were there. We're there for freedom. And I know what that torch represents. That torch represents freedom. It represents liberty. It represents hope. Why do you think the Statue of Liberty holds a torch? Why do you think the Olympics is represented by a torch? Okay? Yeah. The torch represents freedom and hope. And if anyone is ever confused about a symbol used at any event, here's a thought for you, including Rachel Notley. Ask the person who chose the symbol. Ask them why they chose that symbol, for the true meaning of the symbol. Because for Rachel Notley and for various news crews to assume that it was a hate rally simply because it used torches was a terrible, terrible injustice. You are not a news reporter if you say they used symbols of hate at their rally. You have failed as a news reporter, and that's what happened. And Rachel Notley said they used symbols of hate, and that's an assumption. If you are going to be objective and be a true servant of the people, whether you're an elected representative or whether you're a news reporter out to serve the people, you need to actually think to interview the organizer of the event and say, so why are you using torches today? And they would have told you freedom, liberty, or hope. So I am just outraged at.
I agree.
said, I'm outraged at certain medias, and I expect better from this day forward from our elected representatives and our medias.
Well, I did a couple episodes in the whole tiki torch issue, and the excuse was the fact that because those style of tiki torches were used in the Charlotte rally where that one lady was killed by the notional so-called white supremacists. So it's basically just a guilt of association, right? And to me, and you're absolutely right, that was dumbfounded on the media's part as well as the provincial opposition for sitting there making that bald-faced assumption on what? They're sitting there screaming at you, freedom. 1 minute you're supporting the lockdowns, the next minute you're not. Now you're supporting the lockdowns. You tell Kenny that you want to lock more things down. It's like, well, that goes against what I understand the National Democratic model that you promote. You want people to work and be commerce and workers unite, looked after. Now you want people to be herded like cattle. So which is it, Motley Notley? Which is it, Jason Kenny? Which is it you want? What are you trying to promote here? And I'm thankful that there are pastors out there that are speaking up against it. They're not raising their fists in all fury, but they're being calm, they're being persuasive, and they are. It's not going to make me go to God, but it's making me listen. And that's what we need. We need people to actually listen. It doesn't matter if you have a degree in this or a degree in that. We're not seeing humility. We're not seeing integrity. We're not seeing responsibility, especially when it comes to the mainstream media. That's one of the reasons why we have platforms like this. My podcast, my friend's podcast, my other friends' video shows. What you're doing too. You could start a podcast too and give hope and voices of inspiration. People can write in and say, gee, Benita, I really like what you said in Crusty Canucks show the other day. Or I like what you're doing with your own, get it out there, get people going and talking without resorting to that. Okay, we're dogs being backed into a corner. What do dogs do when that happens? They either submit or they bite and they fight their way out of it. I don't want to see that. I've seen enough of that in my life. I don't want any more. But based on my assumptions and my personal thoughts and my hypothesis, the possibility's there. And I don't want to see that get there.
I don't want to see that either. And I have suggestions on how to avoid that. I think in general, we as one by one individuals are vulnerable. And like, just look at some of the stuff Chris Sky has been through where he's been approached in airports and they've attempted to enforce upon him. In some cases, enforcement followed him to the house and he managed to, in a sense, fend them off. Yeah. But a lot of us, maybe we don't have as much boldness as Chris Sky. And if the law came to the door, maybe we would be intimidated and not know how to stand our ground. Well, there's times you could close the door and not let them in. That is one option. But what I think is really going to strengthen us is standing together. We have to connect to one another. And so that means neighbors connecting with neighbors looking out for one another. If you haven't already built relationships with your neighbors, go meet 4 of them today. Go knock on the doors, tell them who you are, introduce yourself. If they're too scared to talk to you because they're wearing their masks, respect the 6-foot guideline, respect their space, respect the mask wearers, okay? Because the mask wearers are just simply people who are scared and they should not be shamed. They need to be treated respectfully. That's very important. And if they want you to keep that 6-foot distance, keep the 6-foot distance. You can still have a conversation. It'd be better if you could get within that space so we could really connect. So exactly. when we're looking at solutions and standing together, so for example, like right now, there's going to be restaurants that are going to choose to stay open tomorrow for dine-in services. And I have a message for everybody who is owning that restaurant, working in that restaurant, or supporting that restaurant. And here's my message for you, is when the authorities show up, let's try what they did in BC, but let's add something to it. Let's add something to it, okay? Yeah. So where the authorities show up, it's pretty apparent who the authorities are. They usually show up in a particular vehicle and they're wearing a uniform and they're going to march in and they're going to potentially issue a warning or a ticket to the restaurateur and maybe the people. I don't know. Is it going to come to that? You're going to start ticketing the people too. I suggest everybody stands up in unity and you link arms with one another. You link arms with complete strangers from the next table. And you link arms and you walk forward. You walk towards the door. So I'm not advocating for violence. That is not what I'm advocating for. I'm advocating for get up, stand together, push back. Okay? And I'm not saying you're actually going to push them, but you're going to stand together and you're going to move forward. And if the words are get out, those can be the words. Perhaps there's another phrase there that would resonate more in that moment. Choose that phrase, something easy, and just stand together. And make sure you've got 2 or 3 people videotaping this. Okay? Like pre-assign someone, hey, if this happens today, you're the one videotaping. We're going to stand. And just stand together and see what happens. Because if the authorities are going to attempt to impose further punishments, and they've got a wall of 20, 30, 40 people in front of them, they're going to have to take extreme action. And chances are they won't, and they will stand.
No, of course not. They're not going to, let's say, pull their service pistols out or their tasers out.
No, they're not. And this is just, it's all about intimidation right now. Like, let's talk about the tickets for a second.
Yeah, that's a big intimidation factor.
Oh, yeah. I've gotten $9,600 now worth of tickets. I have 8 tickets at $1,200 a piece. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So the RCMP that I will applaud is the RCMP of Slave Lake and the RCMP of Grand Prairie. Those are 2 places where I didn't receive tickets. And Edmonton, I was involved in some events there. So Edmonton Police Services is on my nice list. I like Edmonton Police Services. But I'm rather disappointed with RCMP representation in a lot of other communities, because I've been getting ticketed for simply organizing an event where people can express their freedom of speech. And when I promote these events, I say to people, I say to them, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you're mask exempt, that's fine too. If you want to social distance, you can social distance. You have that choice. There's plenty of space. We're outside. If you want to social distance, go ahead. If you don't social distance, I'm not going to enforce anything. And so I have this event. I set up my rig in a park or a parking lot or whatever I'm doing. People show up and they make their own choices. That's what they do. They make their own choices. I trust the judgment of the people to make the choices that's right for them. I'm putting that trust in them, that they make the choice. I am not going to police them and say, wear a mask. I'm not going to say, don't wear a mask. I'm not going to say either. I say, you make the choice that's right for you. And so they show up at these events and they make the choices that are right for them. Sometimes there's 20 people there, and then there's 30, and then there's 40, and then there's over 100. And that's the choice those people make, is to show up there. And yet the RCMP writes me a ticket. So this is really interesting, because there are many, many RCMP members who don't support writing tickets, and they wouldn't write the ticket. But there are a few that write the ticket. They make that choice. So what's happening with these tickets? Okay, I have a collection now. I was going to wallpaper my room with them, but they're mismatched in color. I got yellow ones and white ones, and now I got one pink one. And so they're all mismatched. So I don't think I'm going to use them for wallpaper. But my first court case is late April. And from what I understand from people who've been ticketed in the past, is if they challenge the ticket gets withdrawn. That's what I've been hearing. Every ticket I've heard about that gets challenged gets withdrawn. So if that's what's happening, why is the RCMP writing them in the first place? Well, it's all about intimidation. It's about intimidation. If you're scared, if you're not scared of the virus, well, then we're going to frighten you by intimidating you with a potential ticket or a potential arrest, like they've done with Pastor James Coates. And I have a message to all the authorities right now. I am not afraid of you. I am not scared. I will take another ticket. If you want to put me in jail, go ahead. I'd rather not go to jail, but I'm in a sense prepared to, if that's what this is going to come to, because this cause of freedom is so important that I believe in freedom so much for Canadians, for all Canadians. I'm not just talking Albertans, I'm talking all Canadians. Now that I've been to that rally in Saskatoon on March 20th, I feel a special bond to people from Saskatchewan. They're a lot like us. chances are, if they're like us, I bet people from Manitoba are kind of like us, and people
Oh,
from
no doubt. No doubt. Ontario, Quebec, East Coast, everything.
they believe in freedom. I've been getting messages. I've got messages from people in Ontario and people from the East Coast. They're a lot like us. They believe in freedom. So I'm fighting for all Canadians, and I want a complete restoration of the freedoms and rights of all Canadians. That's my goal. And I'm in this for the next year, the next decade, the next 2 decades, if that's what it takes. But my goal is the complete restoration of rights and freedoms. And if that costs me my time, my energy, my money, my freedom, my life, so be it.
Well said. Well said.
100% all the way. And I'm in this for you people who are listening and who understand, but I'm also in this for all those people who don't understand. They don't understand that our rights and freedoms have been eroded over the last number of decades. They don't get it. They think we're free. We're not free.
No.
We need to be free.
The past year has been proof enough of that, the erosion of it, especially in regards when it comes to assembly, association, freedom of speech too. And it's not just a matter of local authorities stifling yourself or other speakers from rallying. They're also stifling people on the line too. We have parliamentary so-called know-it-alls that want to censor what we see online, what we read online, to what we watch on television, for crying out loud. And I remember back in high school reading about what they used to do people in the Soviet Union. And we would think how lucky we were to live in Canada and not have that kind of problem. Now we have elected representatives that want to do that. Former justices, former liberals, former conservatives, former NDP, people that work as advisors for certain police services too, encouraging that kind of behavior. No, is that what I fought for as a soldier? Is that what my friends fought for? Is that what my fallen brothers and sisters fought for? When I look at my grandparents, when they committed in World War II, they fought the real evil, real fascism, real imperialism. Now it's rearing its ugly head over here. Some of the guests I've had on my show before that lived in former communist states, they're seeing it every day, like Mr. Pelosi and like others I have talked to that want to keep their name at a low profile because of doxing. I actually had a couple of emails from 2 individuals that said they were from mainland China, and they get harassed all the time, not just by members of the party in China, but leaders here too. That's scary. That's scary. Like it's
very scary. And yet there's still people that are apparently ignorant to where this is all going. I was chatting with one earlier today, trying to convince her that there's more going on here than a virus. And she won't see it. And I look around and go, the information's out there. If you're choosing not to see it, that's quite a choice you're making. You're actually choosing to be blind. You are choosing. And I'm just shocked because the information's out there, and yet like I look at my own past and my own way of thinking, and I go, okay, when I'm presented with a weird piece of information, oftentimes if it's really weird and out there, I will dismiss it the first time I hear it. I'll go, nah, that couldn't be true.
The tinfoil hat thing, yeah.
But then when I hear that same piece of information from another source and another source and another source, well, then my ears perk up. Like after I've heard it from 3 different sources, 3 different times, my ears perk right up and I go, oh, could that be true? I better look into that. And that's what people should be doing right now is if you're getting info that doesn't resonate with you right away, but you're getting it from different sources, you have a responsibility to look into it and do some research. And don't just watch, obviously, CBC, CTV, Global News. Look at the Western Standard, read Druthers, go to the Epoch Times, watch Rebel News. Those are all information sources that will tell stories the others won't.
Yeah, well, even Sun Media used to be notorious for being a glad rag / conservative outlet. But you look at some of the articles that have come out of Sun Media and Rebel and True North, even Frank P. Vaughan, Adam Daniel Mazet, some of the satire, tongue-in-cheek information, even my show. Every time I put an episode up, I put my articles where I find this information from and I display it. I've recently dealt with some NDP lovers who deny the fact that the NDP wanted to abolish the military on their upcoming convention. I've had people say, "Oh, what convention? Or where'd you get this information, Crusty?" I said, "Well, right at the NDP website," and I show them the links. I haven't heard anything back from them yet, but they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, exactly." So you have to know what these individuals are planning and what they plan to do. And I admit, I guess you can say we're citizen journalists or citizen media moguls. I never call myself a journalist. You've never called yourself a journalist, but critical thought is key. Freedom of expression and speech is key. Getting dialogue is key here. We're going to go to and get some questions here, some statements here. David Hemington says, if we have another great toilet paper shortage, the people with all the tickets will be the lucky ones. Exactly, Dave. Yes. Keep your tickets, not just for wallpaper. It's like that old elementary school paper. You go do your business and then you literally have sheets of paper, not like actual traditional toilet roll. I guess the boards of education were cheap at the time. Here, give the kids paper, make them feel better. Well said, Dave. Okay. Victor Lemons. Yes. Lucky girl, 9,600 in push right. Well said. Exactly. So, yeah. And Victor also hyphenates too. There's no more common sense. It's 2 and 2 is 5 now. Exactly. That was one of my episodes. Integrity, where has it gone? 2 and 2 is 5, and 7, 9, 11 is the way it is. Where's your vaccine book? Have you got your papers? Jawohl. You cannot take the paper without riding the bus. Yeah. Jawohl. So yes. Please, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to ask anything you'd like to know. I'm going to just go telephone.
Are you getting phone calls now with questions? It's a privilege to be on the show today. I'm open to joining anybody else on a show or podcast. I'm also open to helping any community with a rally, any community in Alberta, but I would even consider Saskatchewan and BC. I'm looking at going to BC the 2nd or 3rd week of May. So if you want to have an event, or if you just want me to stop in, I might even have a whole convoy with me. We'll see. Reach out. So my email number is on the bottom of the screen, info@allfiredupforfreedom, and my cell is 780-349-0181.
Yeah, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Just a call there from my loving wife, making sure that I did my chores today. Yes, I did. Yes, by all means, feel free to ask a few more questions, ladies and gentlemen, before we shut this down for the evening. If you like and hear what you see, please subscribe to Crusty Canuck Podcast. You can find me on Podbean and YouTube alike. I'll be looking for other social media alternatives in the future. That's where you can find me now. Pay attention to my community page on YouTube and on Facebook. And Sundays, I'm starting to host another Fastball series. I'll be taking over from Adam Daniel Mazet from his Hidden Gem live stream. It'll affectionately be called The Fastball, where I'll be co-hosting with Adam Daniel Mazet, a panel of guests, and maybe some special guests. That'll be a staple every Sunday until further notice, ladies and gentlemen. Please look at my page on Facebook for the updates on that. Basically, the format's what we have here, but we'll have anywhere from 4 to 5, maybe 6, maybe 7 people speaking. Big political panel talking about the social climax and political BS that's going on in Canada as we see today. So please feel free to ask myself, Benita, any questions you'd like to know. Freedom fighter, DJ extraordinaire, motivational speaker, Christian, patriot, all around great gal.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And now I host church. It's my new thing. I host church sometimes, but I'll do any event.
Open up your congregation books and prayer books to the gospel according to Benita. Yes.
Get together. That's the message I have. Get together with others. Practice a little non-compliance. Have a wiener roast, whatever. Get together with people. Engage with one another. So if I had to say a message, it's not a direct quote out of the Bible, but it's pretty close. Get together and connect with one another in person. Can I just correct the email address, though? I just realized we didn't put .com at the bottom of it.
Oh, yes. Okay.
allfiredupforfreedom.com.
I will sort that out right away. Yes.
Thank you.
I will do that right away.
Yeah, and then that way they have it. And I see we have a question, how is hockey open, but it's non-essential? Yeah, I find that confusing.
That is sports in general, yes. Yeah, it's all fired up for freedom, right?
Yeah, allfiredupforfreedom.com.
Okay. I misspelled that too. Hello, pay attention to details, Crusty. Yeah, okay. There we are. And we're back at it. Okay. There we go. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm looking at major sports, and now the Vancouver Canucks have issues with their COVID. I guess half the team now is deemed positive. But they have major baseball games in Texas, and there are major sports going on in Florida. So which is it? Texas is a little more densely populated in parts of Canada, and yet they don't have any issues, and it's warmer down there. So I think Texas would be an excellent example because they had that big cold snap there a few weeks back, that big storm, and yet there's people that sit there and swear by wind turbines and green energy. And how did it work for the Texans, encouraging that snowstorm? Not so well. So obviously there's something wrong with the wind turbines and the solar panels. And Texas is a big oil hub too, just like Alberta. So I think that put a lot of these green aficionados at ease and thinking, maybe we should rethink this. What do you think, Benita?
I can tell you, based on my experience of using any battery operated device in the cold in Alberta, it doesn't last long.
Exactly.
So I have to say, I enjoy my vehicle that runs on gas, and I appreciate vehicles that run on diesel. They seem to be what operates in minus 30. So for us to go to these batteries, I have some misgivings. I have a lot of concerns about the agenda to go green.
I would prefer people have the incentive to go off grid by their own means. There are schematics you can download offline that can create your own hydroelectricity for your own dwelling. The thing is that it's not government regulation. They won't get a piece of the monopoly. That's what annoys me the most. I would rather have people do that for themselves. And that way you can learn how to build your own battery stockpile. You can run a home on batteries. It's just how you stack them and how the batteries are built. But you become self-reliant, and we all know that big government doesn't like that because they need that $300 a month out of you for the carbon tax and for this tax and the makeshift pixie dust ferry fart tax that we all like to run on. That's what our government thinks, right? Everything's done by pixie farts because we have to abolish fossil fuels. So, but Texas should be an example out there in Crusty Canuck land. They're not a winter state. They got a bit of a snowstorm, bit of a reminder. But if you look at the footage of the wind turbines, they weren't working too well. And the solar panels that they had set up in certain areas of the state weren't working too well either. Why? Because they were covered with snow and they didn't have the maintenance out there to get people out there to scrape them off. And people forget too that wind powered those turbines are metal and fuel based. What do you think lubricates them? And solar panels are plastic based. So where do plastics come from?
Wow. Yeah.
So
I think it's possible that the talk of going to green energy is really the distraction from the real topic. And what I'm looking at as the real topic is that Alberta, we have an amazing amount of resources here. And we need to make use of these resources. That upgrader at Redwater should be running at full capacity, and we should be doing everything we can. But for whatever reason, there are a lot of forces at work that are suppressing our ability to do that. And it's very, very disturbing. And I remember chatting with Maxime Bernier when I was in Lloydminster on February 5th and 6th. And he talked about autonomy of the provinces, and he is in favor of greater autonomy for the provinces. And what's nice, obviously, about Quebec is they've achieved autonomy. Now, in order to do that, they threatened to separate, but at least they achieved autonomy. And so Quebec collects its own taxes, and Quebec has its own sources of income. Quebec doesn't actually need transfer payments from Alberta. At least according to Maxime Bernier, they're not a have-not province. And yet the powers that be have somehow stripped Alberta of money and they send it to Quebec for some reason. So Maxime Bernier is of the belief that when we as each province look after our own stuff and we look after ourselves, well, in a sense, that's motivating because now we are enjoying the rewards of our efforts and our resources. And then that means that we'll want to do more because we get the rewards for it. But as soon as somebody works hard and then the rewards are taken away from them, well, the ambition is affected. And this happens on a provincial basis and also on an individual basis. That if you work really hard for rewards and you've got these resources and you want to make the most of them, if they are simply stripped from you, whether that's through overtaxation or whatever that is, the motivation's affected. The motivation works the other way as well. The provinces that are, deemed as have-not provinces and they get these extra dollars coming in, well, the motivation for them to make the most of their resources is actually hampered as well, because why should they when they're getting something for free? And that same concept works on an individual basis. So in my case, I was a perfect candidate for CERB last year. I could have collected it because it was due to the COVID-19 rules that my business was shut down. But I chose not to because I had some savings to live on and I had another stream of income. And so I thought, I'm not going to apply for CERB because, of course, in my head, this whole thing was temporary. I thought it was going to end way sooner. And then as time goes on, I look back and I'm still glad I didn't apply for CERB because
my wife and I were the same way. Yeah, we didn't take it.
Well, no, I lived on my savings. And I look at the concept of personal responsibility. And if I'm going to preach a message of personal responsibility and I'm going to say, you take responsibility for you, well, then that means I have to take responsibility for me. I have to live it. And I do. I've never been on EI in my life. I didn't collect any CERB. I don't take the government, what the government offers. And so I look at it as, and I have made this connection with many people that are capable of working have zero interest in government handouts. And it's a pride thing, and it's a sense of responsibility that when you get money that you've earned, like you've actually earned and you've earned it, that feeling of getting that money is much more meaningful than if somebody just gave it to you.
Oh, I agree. It's self-determination.
Individuals and provinces. So that's one of the reasons I'm liking Maxime Bernier so far, and I'm so glad I met him at Freedom Talk back in February. And I'm looking at supporting his party in the next federal election.
The opposition. But mind you, I'd rather, hypothetically, if the VCP were elected, I would welcome Max Bernier as the opposition. Regardless of how much money he's made as a leader right now, that's irrelevant. I like what he says in certain degrees. But I personally believe we need more blue-collar mentality in the House of Commons. I'm not against Pierre Poilievre. I like how he stands up, but I'm not seeing actual action come from the Queen's opposition. I'm not seeing the actions that should be warranted. Okay, I'm not seeing the opposition saying, "Okay, you want to put this bill in? Okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to go back to my riding and start a rally." A lot of these politicians forget they represent the constituents in their riding, not the party. That's the way the parliamentary system should have worked. That was Oliver Cromwell's dream when he fought against King Charles. Okay, when they had the English Civil War. You're not representing this party, you're representing this riding. My village here is going to crap while that village over there is getting all this money. That's not right. Let's go to Parliament and talk about it and work out a fundamental deal. I'm not seeing that in our system. So in a way, I drift to more the libertarian thing. Let people do their lives, let people do their thing, and just let things be. But we can't do that because of ridiculous tax laws we have, because of ridiculous regulations we have when it comes to, let's say, being self-sufficient. We need to get back to the basics again, more blue-collar mentality in there, regardless of what educational background you have. We need that homegrown, let's really roll up our sleeves and get our hands dirty, take our ties off, in fact, put on our work boots, take off our dress shoes, and get into the thick of the crap to get the job done.
Yeah, well, and that's why I'm perfect for this. And I've already put my hat in the ring to run as MP for Peace River Westlog. And I'm planning to run. And it's not because I plan to run that I'm involved in the freedom movement. It's because of the freedom movement that I'm compelled to run, because I believe in freedom so much that I have to take this to the next level. And I've been telling people, write to your elected representative so that we can have positive change. Better yet, run for office. So if I'm going to tell people to do that, I got to do it myself. So I'm putting my name in and I'll be running.
You and me both, sister.
There we go. You're running. I'm running. I'm running for MP.
Parties, but
Well, I want to see the positive change. And I've had some people try to come at me and basically say, well, who do you think you are? You're just a DJ. How can you possibly be qualified to run as an elected representative or to lead people? How are you qualified? Mm-hmm. And so my answer to that is I'm not just a DJ. I'm not just a karaoke hostess, and I'm not just an entertainer. Mm-hmm. I am so much more than that. I'm a businesswoman who has managed to stay in business for over 2 decades. And we are now a year into lockdown, and I'm out of business, and I'm still financially stable. So I understand money. I get money. I know how money works. Money in, money out. Guess what? Here's a lesson for government. When you spend more than you're taking in, that's a problem. The government spending has to be curbed. We have to cut it back to necessary spending, and we have to cut a lot of these things. There's a lot of these things they shouldn't have spent money on. There's a lot of wastage, like when Justin Trudeau took our personal protective equipment and he sent it to China over a year ago. He sent our Canadian supply of personal protective equipment over to China. So never mind looking after Canadians, let's help the Chinese. What kind of decision is that? And so with that government, there's just an irresponsible decision after irresponsible decision. So we need people in there who are responsible. They understand the needs of the Canadian people, and they understand money. That's what we need in there. And we need people who are fresh. They're not necessarily career politicians. It has to be people who are fresh and genuine and have integrity. And we need to put these kind of people like you and me, into office, because we've got the boldness to stand up for what's right, even while we're getting all this flack thrown at us, tons and tons of flack. We're putting our necks on the line here. And we're taking all of these risks, and that's what's needed right now for the people. They need people like us to stand up for them, because for whatever reasons, our current elected representatives at all levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal, are letting us down. And I don't know what the problem is, because I know that lots of those elected representatives are getting nailed with emails and phone calls. Like they are getting hammered by their constituents. And yet some of them are not speaking up for their constituents. So I'm very disappointed. When that letter came out from our MLAs this week, I was very pleased to read that, because even though I don't agree with every single word in that letter, I was pleased to see that those MLAs stood up and did something. Okay, they did something. So it's a step in the right direction. So if we applaud their step in the right direction, well, chances are they'll take another step, and then more MLAs will join in. And that's what needs to happen right now. And I'd love to see MLAs walking the floor, walking away from the UCP party. I'd love to see MLAs more vocal against Jason Kenney and this tyranny that he's attempting to impose upon us. I'd love to see that. The universe requires boldness right now. God requires boldness from us. That's what's needed right now. And to stand down and be meek is not the answer. We all have to step up in whatever form that takes. Some people might step up publicly like myself and speak on a rally stage. Other people might support from behind the scenes. But if you have a call on your heart to do something, you need to act on that. You have to act on that. If that means reaching out to me at info@allfiredupforfreedom.com and helping with a rally or another one of my projects. I'm planning a door-to-door province-wide campaign, for example, because not everybody is online and getting information like this. Not the newspapers aren't necessarily putting out the full truth. So I feel one of the only ways to reach people is a door-to-door campaign. So I'm working on organizing that, figuring out what material to give door-to-door. And if you want to be a part of that, we need volunteers from communities across the province. So that's one of the endeavors I'm working on, because we need to get the truth out to the people. The people need enough of the truth so they can process it, make the decisions that are right for themselves. And we need people like you and me, John, to step up into leadership positions and to take this risk, to face the force is coming at us, and to do it with courage and boldness.
Oh, exactly. I agree. Ryan Jack says, if AOC is qualified in the USA, then we're all qualified. We've all seen AOC's little rants about green technology and everything. You know, her $1 trillion plan and what have you. Gifted, maybe. Yeah. We'll take a few more questions and then we'll shut this down for the evening. My guest tonight is Benita Pedersen, all fired up for freedom, rally motivational speaker, and possible candidate in federal politics. Please, if you have any more questions, fire my way. Justin Mears, let's see. Love all your freedom lovers. Well, of course. Exactly. So Ryan Jack says again, mainstream media cannot be trusted. Yes, of course. It's getting difficult every day. Yes, exactly. So there's the number there. You can reach Benita, all fired up for freedom.com, 1-780-349-0181. Get yourself a fancy Freedom Fighter bumper sticker. Sorry, I can't speak English today.
Yeah, yes. I also sell the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms on hard copy. So for a $10 donation, you can have your own copy, and it's available at all the rallies.
Outstanding. That's great. So a few more questions, ladies and gentlemen, before we shut this down. My guest tonight, like I said, is Benita Pedersen, all fired up for freedom.com, motivational speaker, politician in the works, all around patriot, Christian, what have you. Anyway, enough is enough. We're all seeing what the government is doing to a lot of us small folk, working class folk, small businesses, and democracy as we see it, ladies and gentlemen. If you like and hear what you see from me too, please contact me via Crusty B Canuck 67@gmail.com, or check out my website, crustycanuck.ca. I'd like to make this a full-time commitment, ladies and gentlemen, so it takes people like yourself and fans alike to donate. Whether you want to donate or not, that's fine. I'm not going to demand cash, but like I say, I want to make this a full-time commitment. And please pay attention to my YouTube community page and my Facebook page for updates. I'll be hosting The FASTBALL every Sunday, 4 p.m., where I'll sit with a panel of experts, and we'll talk about politics, the social spectrum, all that good stuff that's affecting Canadians as we speak today. So please tune to that. I'll be taking over Adam Daniel Mazay's Hidden Gem podcast. He'll be joining me, but it'll be over to me. So anyway, make it less confusing. Just look for the Angry Baseball in my Facebook page there for updates and that. And I'll have a new episode of the podcast up tomorrow sometime in the afternoon. They'll have to do with rage. So I'll give you a hint there. So pay attention to my community page and Facebook for that as well. Got to take a couple more questions here from Ryan Jacks again. BC is too liberal for me. I got to get out of there, possibly to Saskatchewan. Well, see, that's the thing. When I look at the liberal brand, it's nothing liberal anymore. It's not liberty. It's not liberty-based. It's control-based. It's condemn-based. It's not – doesn't have the guts like it used to. There are no John Turners, that's for sure.
A word about BC, because I was listening to the Western Standard the other day, and they have a new representative in BC. And so there was a really great program the other day. And it really helped me because as an Albertan, I feel like I understand Albertans, but I don't necessarily understand British Columbians. So they presented in the program an interesting perspective with regards to British Columbians. It's actually quite easy for them to create green energy. Their hydro, like it's very easy for them. That's their perspective. And so they don't understand necessarily the struggle we have in Alberta, because we can't just create green energy like that. And what I found about the Western Standard program is that they're really, really, really trying to kind of unify Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta, BC into sort of a unified front. And they're doing it effectively by having discussions like this where we work at understanding each other. I just feel that more of that has to happen, and I encourage people to watch and support the Western Standard as well.
Yeah, I like their show as well too. I subscribe to their channel. Very informative. I try to get into Blacklock's channel too. It's a little too pricey, but I've actually had some decent conversation with a couple of reporters from there. Just to pick up the phone, and they're that easy to reach out and talk to, and just down to earth, common sense politics, and they promote proper journalism with integrity, respect, and honor, regardless of what their personal beliefs may be in a situation. They will tell the reader and the viewer and the listener a story, as it should be, right? Like I say, ladies and gentlemen, I have been Crusty Canuck on this 8th of April. My guest tonight has been Benita Pedersen. Anything else you'd like to say, Benita, before we sign off?
Just thanks for the support and the shares online. I really appreciate people who share the material that I'm putting out there. And I'm looking at expanding my presence on Rumble and YouTube, so I'll have more there and not just on Facebook. There is the website. It's kind of still under development, but it's a way to connect. I enjoy people who reach out to me, maybe even share your basic contact info, such as your email address and phone number and the municipality you're from. And then once I know you're a supporter, if and when I'm coming to that area with an event, I can send you a message and let you know that event. So I call it signing up as a freedom fighter. If you just send me that basic info, and then I'll send you some info back.
I'll put your email up there again. Those who haven't seen it. You can find Benita info at allfiredupforfreedom.com. Please keep the questions clean, of course, keep them professional. But that's where you can find, ladies and gentlemen. Like I say, my guest tonight has been Benita Pedersen, All Fired Up for Freedom. Welcome, or thank you again for coming onto the show.
Thank you, Crusty.
Not a problem. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Thursday Fastball with Crusty Canuck. If you like and hear what you see, please click like, subscribe, share this all around, keep the algorithm going. So as independent folk get our words out there, keep the dialogue so people have a choice to listen to other points of view other than what they're told. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, CrustyCanuck.ca. Give donations, read my bio. You can also find Miss Pedersen at allfiredupforfreedom.com. Please give her a call, give her a shout, give her a shout out. The more we need more people supporting, the better it's going to be in the long run. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, look after your friends and loved ones. And remember, humanity and merit wins the day. Take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.